Kia ora, good evening. We begin tonight with developing news, and Russia has intensified its attack on Ukraine, targeting its capital with multiple missile strikes for the first time in months. Several explosions were heard in central Kyiv shortly after 8 a.m. local time, where at least 8 people have been killed and a number wounded. A BBC staffer was reporting live on the war when the first strike hit.
A major city in the south of the country, very close to the front lines, was hit. More than a dozen.
Further explosions were heard in other Ukrainian cities, including Lviv and Dnipro, and what could spell a major escalation of the war. Military officials say at least 75 missiles have been fired in the wave of attacks. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has condemned the strikes, saying Russia is trying to wipe their country off the face of this earth. Their foreign minister has slammed Putin as a terrorist who talks with missiles. Well, for more on this, let's go live now to FSN reporter Trent Murray in an underground shelter in Kyiv. Hi there, Trent. Can you walk us through the past few hours? What happened there?
Yeah, good evening, Ingrid. I mean, it's certainly been a terrifying few hours, I have to say. I mean, just to give you some context, my BBC colleague and I are actually using the same hotel normally for live broadcasting, and I was actually out enjoying a bit of a morning run just behind that church in the live shot you could have seen there when that first missile struck. It was pretty terrifying. You hear that swoosh sound over your head, followed by the explosion. Obviously, you know, for me personally, I quickly realised something was up, and I sort of started to run, I think, as is second nature, and then you could sort of see bits of debris almost falling into the park. Now, I don't know whether that was from the explosive or from a nearby building, but it was pretty clear that something really serious was happening in Kyiv. We've managed to make it down into the car park now of that hotel. It serves as the main bunker for this particular area of the city, and we've been here now for the past few hours. We understand that there is starting to be given an all clear just in the last 30 minutes or so. Some people have started to make their way back up. We may do the same in a moment, but what is abundantly clear now is that the Ukrainian capital really has found itself copping the brunt, if you will, of the Russian onslaught of those cruise missiles. The military here is saying that 75 missiles were fired at Ukraine in total as part of this first barrage. 41 of them managed to be intercepted by air defence systems. But nevertheless, of course, everyone is still very much on standby. There is power outages in parts of the country, and we obviously know, sadly, a number of people have been killed. Also, we really have to look at the targets in all of this. A children's playground was hit, an opera theatre, and even just traffic. So clearly military targets weren't the aim here. Unfortunately, it seems civilians really have copped the onslaught of this.
And Trent, all of this comes after months of relative calm in the capital at least. So what has prompted these latest attacks? And does this signal an escalation in the conflict, do you think?
Look, I think that is a very fair assessment. I mean, air raid sirens are reasonably common here in Kyiv. The military is pretty good at being precautious and sounding the alarm. For that reason, people often ignore them now and don't take to their nearest shelter because they think it's a false alarm. Clearly, it wasn't this morning. And so I think what we've seen, combined with the attacks here today and also in other cities like Lviv, like Dnipro, is that there has been a major escalation. We know that that blast on the Crimea bridge really would have upset the Russians, given it was a real personal passion project, if you will, of President Putin. I also have to say that we're hearing in the last hour or so from state-controlled media in Belarus that some sort of joint task force of troops is going to be created between Belarus and Russia. Now, that is to the north of Ukraine. That would be a concerning development, and for that reason we do understand an emergency G7 meeting has been called by Germany, the current president, to discuss all of this with President Zelensky. But I have to say, the main message from the Ukrainians you hear this morning is that the West just needs to send more air defence systems so they can help protect their cities from the Russians.
Thank you so much for your time tonight, Trent.